Hey folks, Ray Gano here. This is PZTV and we are live at the Dallas here, the Watchman Conference 2018. And I have got none other than l.a.Marzulli. L.A., thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for being here. Thanks.
Awesome,
Appreciate
awesome. Great conference. You have been with part of Mike and Jeannie for a while now, doing the conferences and everything. It seems like every year they get better and better. What are your thoughts and ideas, or what's going on here with this year?
Well, we had a speakers dinner on Thursday night, and it was like a high school reunion. I mean, it was just incredible. We all wound up in this one dining room, and the conversations just went from one person to another because, you know, we're all kind of on the same circuit. We see each other. We've interviewed each other, all that kind of stuff. So it was just really wonderful to kind of see everybody.
Yeah.
And you know what? Some of these guys, like Rez Distar, are very close friends. Russ and I have been at numerous conferences together in the last 9-10 years.
Yeah.
So they're like battle buddies.
Yeah.
You know, so it's great.
Awesome. Has anybody stood out in, and again, you've heard a lot of the speeches before and everything, but there always seems that even though I've heard, you know, Coach Dave talk a bazillion times or something, there's just certain talks or certain speeches like, wow, man, that was a good speech. What?
Well, I mean, everybody, this is what's amazing about the mix here. It's very diverse, and we're not all on the same page theologically, which is fine. And yet every message just seems to kind of dovetail together. It creates like a cohesive tapestry of theological thought, and it's really profound. So it depends on who you listen to. Like Russ last night started off just it was a wonderful presentation, and then because he started with a lot of prayer, and then he went deep and dark, and then he brought us out of that. So I mean, he's a master at doing that, and you know, Russ's ministry is not for the faint of heart. It's not for someone who's you know, new in the Lord. It's very intense stuff. I was just listening to Dr. Michael Lake, who was talking about, you know, artificial intelligence and what's going on with that and how it may dovetail into the mark of the beast. I mean, great presentation. Derek Gilbert's presentation on UFOs, and you know, there was no collusion between us, and yet I felt that he set up my presentation.
Oh yeah, big time.
So that was fantastic. You know, pretty much everybody we've seen is they're all just great speakers, and it's an honor and privilege to be part of that.
Well, it's interesting you say set up, because I thought Russ's speech and then your speech, and they all kind of dovetail, because I'm going to be speaking tomorrow night on demonic deliverance, as well as being demonized and demon infestation and so forth. And it's like, wow, man, these guys read my script or something, and you're like laying the foundation for me, so now I've got to come in and
very cool.
It's like I'm doing the easy stuff now.
There you go. That's great though.
So this has been exciting for me and things, but I love what you've been doing. And in fact, just recently I was reading on one of the websites, oh gosh, but the DNA came back from the skull.
Right. There's actually 58 samples that we took, so it's more than one skull. It's probably close to 20 artifacts that we examined. And you know, people say, well, why should we care? Why are we doing this? Well, first of all, in my opinion, it does rewrite history, because it shows that the haplogroups, the mitochondrial DNA from the mother, we had many of them come from Europe and the Middle East. And the hypothesis has been that 3,500 years ago, when Joshua and Caleb prosecuted the war in the Promised Land, there's all these bizarre names of these people there. And there's a mandate from the loving holy God to wipe them all out. Men, women, and children, kill all the animals, burn everything. That's genocidal. It's maniacal. It's capricious. It's barbaric, murderous, whatever. There's a string of adjectives there, unless something is going on. And what these people are, it says very, very simply, in Numbers, I think it's 33, or 31, 33, I think, whatever it is. But in the book of Numbers, it talks about going in, and Nephilim, the sons of Anak, were there. The Nephilim were there like grasshoppers in their sight. There are Nephilim tribes in the Levant, in Canaan, the Anakim, the Raphaim, the Nephilim, the Zanzumim, the Emims, the Anakim, if I didn't say that, which means long necks. And the hypothesis has been that 3,500 years ago, when the conquest of Canaan was prosecuted, the war was prosecuted, these tribes fled. And you say, well, why would they do that? Well, when Joshua goes in and he attacks Jericho, nobody does anything. And it's just, why is God doing it this way? Because God's sending a signal that he's bringing about judgment. He's using the Israelites. They're just blowing some shofars and, giving a shout. Nonsense. Walking around the thing. I mean, the guys in Jericho are probably going, well, that's stupid. What are they doing, right? And then, boom, the walls come down. The rest is history.
Yeah.
If anyone escaped, word had to have gotten out on some level, somehow, that the real God is here and he's about to take us all out.
Yeah.
So as the war is prosecuted, some of these tribes begin to flee. They go northward, they build boats, they sail across the Mediterranean, they sail across the Pacific. A couple hundred years go by. As they move, they settle in the New World. And that's the basis of our hypothesis. Of course, modern-day archaeologists will laugh us silly and just say we're crazy. The haplogroups and the science, the DNA, points to the Middle East and European. But then we've got morphological differences, structural differences within the skulls themselves. The foramen magnum, which is the hole where the spinal column comes up, is pushed all the way back to the rear plate. You can't cradle headboard that. The absence of foramen ovales are many of the Paracas skulls do not have those. Yeah. Many of the Paracas skulls show an absence of a sagittal suture. Are we looking at, and you start putting all these things together, I think it's genetic. And what we're trying to do is get a consortium. And right here at the Watchman conference, I've handed out free DVDs and the book that we created about the DNA evidence to medical doctors and one anthropologist.
Cool.
I think I've done 4 or 5 people, and I've asked them, and I'm asking you folks, if you're a medical doctor or an anthropologist, shoot me an email, l.a.marzulli.net, l.a.marzulli.net. I will send you a free DVD and a free book. All I ask is that you would look at the data, and if you feel our data is correct and you want to weigh in on that, write a paragraph, because it's just like a 9/11 truth is what we're trying to do is get a lot of people to come on the record and say, the data is true, we need to be looking at this. And the more people we get, the stronger we can push back against the prevailing paradigm.
Because that was absolutely amazing, the stuff that you were showing me. And again, to talk about the boarding, that you don't, your cradle board, you couldn't do that. And then the occipital lobe back here where the spine comes in, all that prevents that coming in, the cradling and everything. So did these races then, now, do you believe these are Nephilim, or do you believe that these are God's little g? Or what?
I believe what we're looking at in Paracas specifically may be the remnant of the Anakim. Because in order for these heads to be balanced, they had to have a longer neck. They're not giants, but they had to have a longer neck. The ones I found in Catalina Island, some of them had 6 fingers.
Wow. And
the skeletons, there were 2, just under 9 feet, or right around 9 feet.
Wow.
And that was my research, my discovery in the archives. The picture was from 1919, 1921. Ralph Gooden, the primitive archaeologist, was employed by the Hay Museum, later doubled up by the Smithsonian, to conduct primitive archaeological digs, which is what he did. And there's one picture, which is pay dirt, which is in my book, On the Trail of the Nephilim, excuse me, volume 2. And Ralph was sitting there in a recently excavated grave, leaning on a shovel. And in front of him is a very large skeleton in situ. We took that picture. I took a picture of the 5x7 picture, which is black and white. I sent it to 3 experts who looked at the picture, blew it up, digitized it, and based on measurements of Ralph Gooden, who was 5 foot 8 inches, we know that, it's a matter of historical record, they ascertained that the skeleton was right around 9 feet.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. So when the world comes to the conclusion that maybe there was an alternative race, how are we being primed today? You've talked about disclosure and everything, and that kind of leads a little bit into the Fatima issue that you've been exploring.
Well, I mean, all this, dovetails together. It's a tapestry that's been woven by the fallen cherub, by Satan. It's a tapestry of deception, which has been woven to deceive, and that's precisely what it does. And a lot of this has been deliberately obfuscated by the powers that be for whatever reason. They don't want this information out. When I published that photograph in my book, it went viral. We went back, Richard Shaw and I were the director of the Watchers series, and I went back to Catalina Island Museum, and they had taken the picture, blew it up, plastered it on the wall, and wrote a hit piece about Ralph Gooden underneath that, except they cropped the giant out of the picture.
Oh, wow.
And we took a picture of that. That went viral. I went back to the museum about 3 weeks ago. in the new museum. The picture has been restored. The giant is in front. They haven't done anything with it. And I guess it's like damage control. In other words, we can't do this because he busted us. First of all, he busted us with the picture. Then he busted us because we cropped the picture. So he might as well just put it up and see what happens. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
That's the thing. The American people really, oh, it's 9 foot around. Who cares? You know, what difference does it make?
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference because what it does is it points back to the veracity of the biblical prophetic narrative, and it points back to a supernatural worldview, of course, which I'm a proponent of.
Yeah, exactly. Your new book, in fact, you're coming out with, what, I believe Fatima 2?
Fatima 2.
And what is that going to be doing?
Fatima 2 will be available sometime mid-April, end of April, somewhere in there. And also a book with it by Jose Machado. I wrote the forward, and Francisco Correa wrote the second forward. So we, first, second, whatever. We both wrote forwards for the book. And it's a small little book, more like a pamphlet, but it is. Jose had access to the Fatima archives in, I think it was 2008 or 2010, not too long ago. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, the Fatima archives are in a place called the Fatima Sanctuary, which has become this huge shrine. It's a multi-million-dollar money-making business. There are, when you go there, shop after shop after shop after shop, line the streets of Mary and Jesus junk wherever you look. Statues, and that's fine. People want memorabilia. I mean, I get it. I'm not. That's fine. People need to make a living. When you go to the sanctuary, it's more like a basilica. And the basilica is here, and then down from that is this huge plaza, which is paved, which will hold up to 1 million people.
Holy mackerel.
So it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's out of all the apparition sites, it's a big deal.
Man.
So Jose Machado had access to the Fatima archives. In 1917, there was a photographer called Joshua Benolio who took pictures, 12 of them, of the so-called Miracle of the Sun event. And this is where it gets really interesting. He had access to the archives and was able to look at the original glass plates. Jose Machado, the original glass plates, which were very small, about like this. And he had access to all of these and looked at them. And he's a professor of semiotics. So this is what he's trained to do anyway. And D107 shows the crowd with the umbrellas, and to the right of the picture, there looks like smoke billowing from the ground, coming up on a column, making a left-hand turn, and there, right over the apparition site, which is here, is a disc-like object.
Wow.
And he analyzed the glass plate. The object is intrinsic. It's in the glass plate. It's not a smudge. It's not a chemical stain. Whatever this is, it's intrinsic in the glass plate itself.
Wow.
And it's right over the apparition site. And it's 1917, so it's not like we have photography today.
They didn't have Photoshop back then.
No. But the eyewitnesses who were there talked about looking up and seeing a dull silver disc. Jose Machado was interviewed along with Fatima de Armada, who was a major researcher in all of this, by a very well-known series, television series, and I won't say the name of it, very well-known series. And they were doing this 6-part series, and they interviewed on not only Fatima, but other things. And higher-ups in the organization, when they viewed the show, so we can't air this, it's too controversial.
Wow.
And they squashed it.
Wow.
And it was never aired. So we have Jose's book with the analyses of the picture and the picture.
Wow.
We're publishing it. And it's, I always thought 10 years ago, 20 years ago, studying Fatima, surely somebody must have gotten the photograph. They have. We've got it. It's in Fatima too. And it's mind-blowing.
Wow.
Because
amazing.
one more thing, the eyewitnesses who were there, we draw all of our data from the 1917 records, not records that come 20 years, 30 years later. The original, handwritten 1917 records. And they talk about eyewitnesses looking up and seeing a dull silver disc, a dull. And we really drew a lot on Fatima de Armada's book and Joaquim Fernandez book. They collaborated together and created these incredible books. They went in, and it's hard science. I mean, they interviewed lots of witnesses and looked at the original records. So it's absolutely fascinating. And we never talk about or bash, what people want to believe.
Yeah.
If you want to believe it was Mary of the Bible, you go for it. But at the end of Fatima 2, and I showed this today at the Watchman conference, there's a compilation of modern day miracle of the suns and apparitions, which we show, which is mind-boggling.
Yeah, that was pretty. That was pretty wild. So what's coming up next here? You're still doing your weekly show, or are you doing that still twice a week?
Acceleration Radio is on Tuesday nights, and then that's live radio, but I also film it. So then we put it up on our YouTube channel, and then later on in the week, usually Thursday or Wednesday or whatever, we'll do PPS report, and we'll put that up on YouTube too. So if you're watching this and you want to go, l.a.marzulli on YouTube, and click the subscribe button. We're up around 77,500, something like that. Awesome. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome. So, well, folks, this has been awesome speaking here with L.A. Marzulli. You have been watching it live here at the Dallas, here at the Watchman Conference. Listen, I want to really encourage you to go to hearthewatchman.com. Get the streaming video. It's a 6-month deal, so you can watch the videos over and over again for 6 months. Gives you a chance to really analyze it, watch it, study it, invite your friends over to stop watch it with you and everything. But don't you have a code, Marzulli20?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So Marzulli20, and you'll get $20 off the streaming video. Get it tomorrow or get it today. I mean, just get it and
incredible information, folks. Yeah. Incredible information from all the speakers.
Yeah, we've got a bazillion speakers here that have just incredible information. So I encourage you to do that. But thank you so much. Thank you, LA,
Ray.
for
Appreciate
being
it.
on here.
Thank you. God bless you.
Do me a favor, folks. I want you to hit that red subscribe button. I want you to give it a thumbs up, and I want you to hit that little bell so that you can let us, so we know when we're going to put out a new video or something. So my name's Ray Gano. We'll see you again. PZTV. Goodbye, God bless, and Maranatha.